Here I am, stuck in the attic again, longingly looking through the window at the outside world, melancholically narrating on my own life. Oh, to be as free as a bird. But if we can't be out there together, if we can't watch a film in the cinema together, then this is the next best thing. So thank you once again for joining me for this, our second lockdown cinema screening. And what a film we have for you today, 2014's Birdman, or Birdman or the Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance, to give the film its full title. The film won 4 awards at the 2015 Oscars, including Best Picture, beating films like American Sniper, Grand Budapest Hotel, The Imitation Game, and Boyhood. It was actually nominated for a total of 9 awards. It's a film with a magnificent cast, spearheaded by Michael Keaton, who kind of came out of the wilderness, really. He'd been, in films before this. He'd been in a lot of side roles. He'd done a lot of voice work, some great work on Toy Story 3, for example. He'd even done some computer game work, but he'd not really starred as the leading man in a film. So yeah, it was very much a return to the big time for him. After this, he starred in Spotlight, which also won Best Picture the following year at the Oscars. So therefore that meant he joins a very rare list of starring in back-to-back Best Picture Oscar winners, and joined a list of people including just 9 people who have done this, including Russell Crowe, Meryl Streep and Clark Gable. His nomination for Birdman was his first ever Oscar nomination, and of course someone who we saw earlier this year at Cinema Night when we watched Batman back in September. And it isn't the only film we've watched from Cinema Night this year which has a similar sounding title to today's film, Batman and Birdman. We also watched Lady Bird in February. However, it isn't, although it sounds like it could be the sequel to today's film, Birdman, Lady Bird. It isn't, although it does sound like the potential weak link in the MCU. And it would follow the pattern of the male version of the superhero coming first, Birdman, followed by Lady Bird. For example, Batman and Batgirl, Superman and Supergirl, and of course more recently Ant-Man and the Wasp. So there you go. So back to today's film then. Birdman is directed by Mexican filmmaker Alejandro González Iñárritu. Birdman, a comedy film as it is, very playful, isn't actually typical of his style and tone. Actually, to give you an idea of the expected tone of Iñárritu's work, if you type his surname into Google, about the 4th suggestion down is the Death Trilogy. So that probably gives you some idea about the kind of tone of his usual films. This refers to 3 films, Amos Perros, which he made in his native Mexico, 21 Grams and Babel. Now, although they've been coined a trilogy, they're not in the expected sense of seeing the same characters in a continuing storyline across the films, but they're all films that have that are linked in the way that they tell a story through an interweaving and non-linear narrative. All 3 excellent films, but not necessarily films with an uplifting tone. Maybe not films to watch during a lockdown, perhaps. So I hate to be that guy, but I have been a fan of Inarritu since his very first film, Amos Perros, like I said, which he made back in his native Mexico. Hugely successful film, nominated for Best Foreign Language Film at the 2001 Academy Awards. It's ranked 221st in the IMDb top 250 films, which is certainly an achievement, and it's one of those films that Back in the day I recorded on VHS off the telly before I levelled up and purchased the DVD. After this film, Inarritu went on to direct The Revenant, which is also currently on Netflix. Very different films, but they do share the same cinematographer, Emanuel Lubezki. So if you like the way Birdman is shot, and we'll get on to that a little bit later, then there are some similarities with the way Birdman is shot and the opening of The Revenant. Now, those of you who know me well know that I love football. Goal! In 2010, Inarritu worked with Nike to make a football advert ahead of the World Cup. It's good. I'll put a link on Google Classroom for you to watch. Which surely makes him the only person to have directed both Leonardo DiCaprio and Wayne Rooney in his career. Here we see them both looking equally dishevelled. It was rumoured that Wayne Rooney was Inarritu's first choice for the role in The Revenant, but at the time he was too busy kicking a football, so instead he cast DiCaprio. It's also rumoured that Inarritu did ask DiCaprio to base his performance on Rooney in that advert, so do check it out. Okay then guys, so it's nearly time for the film. So if you haven't already, if you weren't with us last time, download Netflix Party on your Google Chrome browser. The code for Netflix Party will be on Google Classroom and Hangout, so I'll share it on all those platforms. If you can't get Netflix Party, then just feel free to watch the film, and you can and sort of independently, and you can join back up with us later. So get comfy, nest yourselves down. We're aiming for a sort of 1:20 start roughly, and then about 5 or 10 minutes after the film, if you're in the Google Hangout and you'd like to take part in a quick chat about the film afterwards, then that'll take place roughly sort of 10 minutes or so after the film has finished. So things to think about during the film: be alert for the cinematography in the film. Very interesting way in which it's shot. I'll not say any more than that. And anything else really, how that may have affected the actors, the pressure it may have put on them. But yeah, generally I'd just love to hear your thoughts on the film, especially if you're watching it for the first time. Those of you who are watching it again a second time, was there anything you noticed? This will be my second viewing, so I'm keen to watch it again. Thanks again for joining me, and I'll see you after the film. Bye.